Hey everybody, welcome to Let's Do a Thing. Today we'll be doing a thing with bread. That's right, every good low-carb diet goes to die. Focaccia. It's a super simple recipe. This is a no-knead. Takes about an hour and a half roundish around it. Simple ingredients. Makes you look really impressive. It also tastes amazing. So we're going to give this a shot today. I think you guys are going to like it. You guys, not the people at home. You. Let's talk focaccia. First off, it's a great word. Focaccia. Focaccia is one of those bread recipes that you can do anything you want to it, pretty much. I mean, the core ingredients are the same as every bread recipe. The ratios are a little bit higher. It's about an 85% hydration dough. Again, if you know what that means, give yourself a little. If you want to know, let me know. I'll explain it to you in another video, but it's kind of sciencey, nerdy stuff, so it's up to you. Really, what's important here is what do you want to go in or on your focaccia. Me personally, I've got some rosemary here. I've got some cherry tomatoes that I've just cut in half. Flaky salt that I like to finish it with. Maybe some black pepper and Parmesan cheese that I grate over top. Real good, big flavors, little effort and time. So, to start, we're going to get all of our dry ingredients mixed up in a bowl. So I've got 2.5 cups of flour here, 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. I'm going to take a second to go ahead and mix the salt in, get it pre-dispersed because you don't want to bite into a big hunk of salt. Or maybe you do. I don't know. So, rosemary. This is fresh rosemary. I don't like a lot of rosemary. I think it's an herb that packs a lot of punch and people like to overuse it. As I like to just take it out. Especially fresh. You can use dry if you want, just don't use near as much as I'm using because dry herbs are stronger than fresh herbs, if you didn't know that. So I will just take these and separate the leaves. You don't want the stems, we don't need any of that. You just take it and pull backwards on these. These leaves will start to pull away, and it instantly smells like rosemary in here. If you're not used to rosemary or you've never had it before, like a Christmas tree, piney sort of smell, we're not even going to use a knife for this. We're going to go super rustic, and we're just going to rip this up and just put it straight into the flour. I like to coat things in flour first. That's just a good general rule of baking. If you're putting something in a dough, any sort of bread or sweet thing, anything like that, it will not sink to the bottom when you start to cook your bread. It tends to hold its stasis in the bread a little bit better dispersed. Otherwise, a lot of the things like fruitcakes and things like that, a lot of that heavy stuff will sink to the bottom. So just mix it up like that. Okay, I've got a little bit of rosemary in here. Right here, I've got 1.5 cups of water. Water. It's plain. There's nothing special to it. You can go ahead and bloom your yeast in it. I have not been doing that. I've actually just been mixing the yeast into the bread. It's a no-no. People get upset when you do that because there's salt in here. And salt can slow down the fermentation, the activation of the yeast. This is not going to have enough time to do that because we're going to get moving on it pretty quick. Just mix it all in. You can, like I said, you can put it in here. I just realized I totally let it bloom in the thing. Cut to a scene of it blooming. Just, that's what it looks like, okay? So, we're going to let this, 10 minutes, we're going to let this hydrate, and then we'll come back after that 10 minutes is over, add our olive oil in, give it a quick mix, and then we'll let it proof for the first rise. Pretty much only the only rise. Okay, so, we've let this sit for about 10 minutes. The bread is, or the dough has started to hydrate, the flour is hydrated. We have 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. This is one of those recipes that there are so few ingredients, you do want to get a better quality olive oil because that's kind of the main component of focaccia. It's up to you. If you have a cheaper olive oil, or extra virgin olive oil, sorry, will it taste good? Yeah, of course. It's bread, it's focaccia, it's going to taste great. But if you spend a few extra dollars and put extra virgin olive oil that's cold press, I think it is, or first press, something like that, it's going to taste a lot better. Do with that information what you will. Personally, I spend a little bit more money on the olive oil and a little less money on the flour itself. So we're just going to take this and add this in all at once. It's going to look a little rough, and you're going to be like, this guy lied to me. But I swear I'm not lying. We are going to, see, look at that. Soupy, looks terrible. We're going to pick it up from the bottom, just like you would fold in anything into a recipe. We're going to just fold. And we're going to continue folding. And a couple things that this is doing. This is incorporating the extra virgin olive oil. It is also forming gluten in this bread. Since we're kneading it basically not at all, this is elongating the gluten proteins and stretching the dough out just a little, and slowly incorporating the enormous amount of olive oil that we just put in. At this point, after you're done folding this in, you will also want to preheat your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Every oven is different, so it's kind of up to you. But I like about 425 for mine because my oven, it's just great. It just works perfectly every time and is never a constant source of trouble and Listen, I want the people to know that not everything's perfect in every kitchen, so just so you know. So that's about all I'm going to do to this. It looks pretty stodgy. Looks like a lot of oil. It's not. I promise you it's not. This is going to sit. We're going to cover it, let it sit for roughly an hour. I mean, you could do it a little less. Really, it's about till it doubles in size. That's what we're looking for, especially with this type of bread. So give it an hour. Take a look at it, see if it's doubled in size. If it has, then we can move on to the next step. But right now I'm going to wrap this up and set it aside. And we'll see you in about an hour. Bam! It just smells wonderful in here. I don't know what to tell you guys. You got to try it just for the smells alone. It's wonderful. All right, so this actually makes a quarter sheet tray. If you do not have a quarter sheet tray, you might as well just quit. You can't make this. I'm kidding. Just put it on whatever. It's really not that important. It's not about the vessel. It's not about the corners, the edges. If you have a cake tin or anything like that, put it in that. As long as it can get a little bit shallow, you want this to be about half an inch because it'll puff up in the oven or rise a little bit while you're working on it. It's okay. Don't go out and buy a quarter sheet tray or a half sheet tray. Just use what you got. We've got about 2 tablespoons of olive oil here. This is just to coat the bottom. I told you there's a lot of oil in this. That's kind of why you want to get a good one, because that's the predominant flavor. We're just going to rub this in. Don't worry, I wash my hands. Make sure to get it up the sides here because this will rise quite a bit. Okay. Now we don't want to knock all the air out of this because we're not really going to give it a whole lot of time to rise again. This is a pretty quick bread, so if a little bit comes out, that's fine. Well, we're just going to turn this out. Okay. Nice oily hands. You don't want this stuff to stick to you, and it will try. And we're just going to push this out. And this is the fun part. You got little kids at home? They will love this. We're going to push this out to all the corners the best we can. If we lose a little air, that's not a big deal. This is a pretty active bread. Push, push, flatten, push. Now, eventually you'll get to the point where it's not going to want to continue moving. Every time you pull it, it'll snap back. In fact, I don't know if you can see that right here. So this is what you try to push this out, push it in, and it continues to snap back. So if it does that, that's when you got to give it a few minutes, let it relax. Come back in about 10 minutes. The bread will have relaxed a little bit, and you can kind of push it and fill out a little bit farther. And that's kind of the big thing about focaccia, is once it starts to form that gluten, it's not going to want to stretch out, or it's going to want to pull back into itself. Just give it a few minutes, come back, re-stretch it until it fits the tray. So it's been resting for a couple minutes. We'll go ahead and see if it'll stretch out a little bit farther now. All right, that's pretty good. It's pretty much filled out all the corners now. Without letting this rest, because it's still got quite a bit of air in it and it's going to puff up a lot in the oven, we're going to do what's called dimpling. That's probably the funnest part of this. Because you get to take your greasy hands and just dun 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 poke down into this, making lots of little dimples. You'll lose quite a bit of air this way, but like I said, it's okay. This is a place for all the oil to land, the salt to land, all that. All right, she's dimpled. She's beautiful looking. We've got some half cherry tomatoes here. All I'm going to do is poke them in, push them down a little bit. I do about 8 cut in half. This is just about ready to go in the oven. This is the point where if you want to add anything else to it, this is the time to do it. For me, this is something that is not complete without a nice layer of flaky salt. Flaky salt has just a beautiful crunchy texture. It's almost more about the texture than it is the flavor of salt. It just crunches and you get this nice burst of salt over this really rich focaccia. It's just really nice. Okay, that's it. It's done. Dig in. It's delicious. No, I'm kidding. We gotta put this in the oven about 30 minutes. I personally have to put this on a lower rack for my oven. The bottom tends to not want to get crispy. That's just my oven. Your oven will be different, I guarantee it. So we're gonna go ahead and pop this in the oven and give it about 30 minutes. We'll be right back. Ready. Okay, so this is our focaccia. I just pulled it out of the oven, and I've got asbestos hands. That's not true. I did pull this out of the oven, but it's been resting long enough to be cool to the touch. You don't want to let this sit in here too terribly long, because the bottom of the focaccia will get kind of soggy and gross. And these can be a little bit tricky to get out. You would think with as much oil that is in there, it'd be easy to slide right out. It's not the case. Let's go ahead and season this up real quick. I'm going to put a little bit of black pepper on the top of this. Don't know why. I like just a little bit of heat. You could put red pepper flakes, would be really good on this. You could take it in any direction you really want. I've also got some Parmesan cheese that I'm going to grate over the top of this. I mean, bread and cheese and tomatoes. This is turning into like a focaccia pizza, but, you know, a little bit more civilized, a little bit more refined. Okay, let's top it with oil too. I'm going to drizzle just a little bit of olive oil on the top to finish, as if there's not enough oil. And then we're going to just pull this out, put it on a wire rack. If you don't have a wire rack, you could take some tin foil, kind of scrunch it up a little bit, just something to kind of let that bottom rest up off of the countertop, off of any sort of resting vessel. So I've already loosened this up just a hair. Slide that out. That will ensure that the bottom stays nice and crispy and delicious. So really, this is the end of it. You can put it back under the broiler to toast a little bit if you prefer. I think this is perfect how it is. So that's focaccia. This is a great appetizer for any meal. Honestly, it can be a meal in and of itself if you're brave enough. Great side dish for any sort of heavier, like kind of roasted meal, like a roasted chicken would be great with this, steaks, or if you just wanted to put it out first. It's a wonderful thing. It's really easy. I hope you guys give it a try soon. I hope you liked this recipe. If you did, please give us a like and subscribe. To all of our subscribers, I would like to say thank you so much. This wouldn't be possible without you guys. Thank you. Until next time, go do your thing.
That was good. And the thing you're gonna do is
Salt Bay. Yeah!